Hello guys, welcome to the video lectures of GC O-Level Physics 5054. For today our topic is dynamics. My name is Faraz Khan and the learning outcomes for today's topic are balanced and unbalanced forces, friction and circular motion. In this chapter we will look at different laws of Newton. We're going to specifically look at the Newton's third law. We're going to describe the effect of the balanced and unbalanced forces on a body. We will look at the ways in which a force may change the motion of a body. We will recall the equation force equals to mass into acceleration. We're going to look at the explanation that friction is a force that impedes motion and produces heating. We're going to discuss the effects of friction on the motion of a vehicle in the context of tire surfaces, road condition, braking force, braking distances, thinking distance and stopping distances. We're going to qualitatively describe the motion in a circular path due to the constant perpendicular force, including the electrostatic forces on an electron in an atom and gravitational forces on a satellite. And we're going to discuss the ideas of circular motion in relation to the motion of planets in the solar system. So let's begin with our first topic, which is balanced and unbalanced forces. So now when we're looking at balanced forces, it means that all the forces that are acting on a certain body, the resultant force of all of these forces is zero. So in such case, we can say that the forces are balanced. Balanced in the sense that there is no acceleration. The acceleration is zero, which would mean either of the two things. One, that an object is at rest and that it will remain at rest. And the second, that the object at motion will remain in the motion at constant velocity. Now, moving on to the unbalanced forces. In this case, if the forces acting on an object are unbalanced, the resultant force is not zero. So the acceleration would not be zero in this case, and the object would not be at rest, or it would not be in uniform motion. It would have a changing velocity, or if it's a stationary body, it will start to move. The overall resultant force acting on the body will not be zero, and thus we can say that the forces are unbalanced on this body. A force is a push or pull that one object exerts on another, which produces or tends to produce motion, stops or tend to stop motion. Now, let's just suppose that you're seeing a ball coming towards you. If you want to stop it, you would have to apply some force in the opposing direction of the motion of the ball. So, for anything to move or for anything to stop, a force is required, which could be a push or a pull force that has to be exerted on an object for it to change its course of motion. Now, looking at the different types of forces and their nature, we've got weight, which is the pull of the earth acting upon an object. We've got tension, which is the pull at both ends of a stretched string or a rope. We've got magnetic force, which is the push or pull extended between magnets or the pull of magnets on magnetic materials. We've got an electric force, which is the push or pull between electric charges. We've got the contact force, which is the push when two objects are pressed together, causing their surface atoms to try to keep them apart. We've got friction, which is a contact force that slows down moving things. It exists between the surface of two objects in contact. We've got resistance, also known as viscous force. It is found in fluids such as oil or air. Both resistance and friction are dissipative in nature. That is, the work done by them always leads to the production and scattering of thermal energy. As an example, your skin suffers a floor burn when you accidentally slide across the gym floor. So these are the types of forces and their nature. Now, coming on to the Newton's first law of motion. Every object continues in a state of rest or uniform motion in a straight line unless a resultant force acts on it to change its state. Now, let's just simply take the example of a boulder coming down a hill, or any object moving in a uniform motion. You know that if something is moving in a uniform motion, it will continue to move in that motion unless there is another force that counters it. If something is at rest, it will not move until another force comes in and changes its state of motion. So anything that's moving in a uniform motion or anything that is at a stop will not change its course of motion unless a force is applied to it. And that is the Newton's first law of motion. Moving on to the Newton's second law of motion. When a resultant force acts on an object of a constant mass, an acceleration will result with the product of its mass and acceleration equal to the resultant force. The direction of the acceleration being the same direction as that of the resultant force. So what it's trying to say is that anything that we apply a force at, now let's just say that there is a boy that is trying to push a mass of 20 kg with a force of 15 Newton. All right. So, and we need to find out the acceleration of the box, assuming that there is no friction. We're going to use a formula which is F equals to ma with the force 50 Newton and the mass 20 kg, and we can find the acceleration, which is 2.5 meters per second squared. Now, the second law also allows us to find the weight of an object. So, let's say if you were to let an object of mass m fall freely in the air, it would have the acceleration which would also be equal to the g in this case in the formula w equals to mg, which would be 9.8 meter per second square. And the resultant force would be the weight of the object caused by the pull of the gravity. So what it's trying to say here is that the resultant force that's acting on any body is the product of its mass and acceleration, and it is in the same direction of the motion of the body. Now, moving on to Newton's third law. And it says that if body A exerts a force on body F, then body B exerts a force minus F equal and opposite on body A. Every action has an equal and opposite reaction is the Newton's third law of motion. So the action and the reaction forces are equal in magnitude. And let's say a guy is walking on a rough surface or on some sort of ground which has got friction to it. The force that is being applied on the ground by his feet are a backward force, and the ground has a reaction force on the feet of the boy, which is a forward acting force enabling the person to walk. Now that is a reaction force. The force applied by the foot on the ground is the action force, and the friction from the ground back to the boy is the reaction force. This equal in magnitude reaction force allows the boy to move forward. And that is the Newton's third law of motion. That every action will have an equal and opposite reaction. This third law brings us to a very important topic, which is friction, which is the force which resists the motion of one surface on another surface. Some positive and negative effects of friction are given. Negative effects include that they reduce the engine power of cars by 20% and causes wear and tear of moving parts in engine, motors, and machines. Whereas for the positive effects, they're needed for walking and holding a pen or chopstick, or is used in braking pads to slow down cars. Now, let's just assume that there is this box on a rough surface which is at a slope. Now, if I were to check the forces acting on this body, now we're assuming that this box is on a slope, but it is not sliding down, so it is at a stop. Now, if I am to look at the forces acting on this box, first it will have its weight dropping downwards, which would be the W. Then we would have the normal reaction force from the surface to towards the box. So we've got weight acting, and we've got the normal force acting on the opposite end. There is a friction which is along the surface, as you can see that the forces must be causing the box to move down the slope. The frictional force will be against it. But if the box is not moving down the slope, all of these forces are balanced in some sort of way. Now, if I were to draw all of these forces, taking out this box and the slope, it would come to some sort like this. We've got weight acting downwards. We've got the normal reaction force right here. If I were to make a parallelogram out of it, it would be it would be like this. And then the combined resultant of N and W, the normal reaction force and the weight, would be towards the down left. And then if we just put the friction here, you can see that it balances out eventually the other force and causes the box to balance. So on this box, we've only got two forces. One is the resultant of W and N, the W and N right here. And we've got the friction force right here. They're both balancing each other out. Now, if we look at some of the common methods which are used to minimize the negative effects of friction, you can use highly polished surfaces for moving parts. You can introduce a layer of lubricant between the two surfaces to prevent the surface irregularities from holding on to one another. The example of this would be the lubricants are oil for moving parts in engine and a cushion of air for a hovercraft, and then using steel ball bearings to enable surfaces to roll over rather than slide over each other. So these are some of the common methods which you could use to minimize the negative effects of friction. Now, moving on to circular motion. When a force acts at 90 degrees to an object's direction of travel, the force will cause that object to change its direction. If the force continues to act at 90 degrees to the motion, the object will keep changing its direction, whilst remaining at a constant speed and would travel in a circle. This is what happens when a planet orbits a star or satellite orbits a planet. Now, let's let's try to understand the first point here, that if there is a body moving in this direction and then there's another body coming from this direction, which is the 90 degrees. When they both collide, one of them changes its direction and will eventually move the other way. Now let's suppose that this 90-degree force is acting on this other body at all times. It will eventually cause it to keep changing its motion. And that's how the body will start moving in a circular motion. And this is what happens when a planet orbits a star. We have what happens is, so we've got the Earth in the center, we've got the gravitational attraction of the sun acting on the moon on one end, causing it to travel in a circular path. Now, the moon is being pulled towards the Earth at a 90 degrees to its direction of travel. But there are a lot of other factors that are required to make something move in a circular path, which is first the mass of the object. So a greater mass requires a greater force. The speed of an object, a faster moving object requires a greater force. And the radius of the circle, a smaller radius requires a greater force. So now let's look at it. Now you see that there is a moon, and this right here is this is the center. This is the Earth, and now the moon has this gravitational attraction acting on it by the center of the Earth, whereas the direction of the moon is outwards. But since there is this gravitational attraction, it is causing this moon to move in a circular direction, even though the direction of the moon is outwards. It's in a straight line, it's not in a circular motion. But due to this gravitational attraction by the center of the Earth, it's causing the moon to take a circular path. And this is circular motion. Moving on to our practice examples. A man pulls a sledge of mass 25 kg across a level ground with a horizontal force of 60 newtons. A constant force of friction 20 newton acts on the sledge. What is the acceleration of the sledge? So to find the acceleration of the sledge, we're going to just take F equals to ma, force equals to mass into acceleration. The mass is 25 kgs. The force, it's got a horizontal force of 60 newton and a constant force of friction 20 newton acting on the sledge. Now the 20 newton is a frictional force and it would be in the opposite direction. So the resultant would be 40 newtons in one direction. So F equals to ma, force equals to 40, mass equals to 25. You can just find out the acceleration, which would be 1.6 meters per second square. The correct answer would be B. Now, moving on to the next question. A car moves in a circle at constant speed. What is the direction of the resultant force acting on the car? As we know that the force is acting towards the center of the circle, which is the centripetal force. In a circular motion, the resultant force is the centripetal force, which is acting towards the center of the circle. And so answer B is the correct answer for this question. Moving on to the next. When a car turns at a corner speed, it risks toppling over. Two factors affecting the stability of a car are the height of its center mass and the distance between its front wheel. Which factors make the car more stable? The center of mass has to be low. The center of gravity has to be low for the car to be more stable, and the distance between the front wheel has to be large so that it is covering more surface area and it gives the body more stability. So option D is the correct. Center of mass has to be low. It needs to be near the ground, as close as it can be, and the distance between the front wheel has to be as large as it can be. So option D is the correct answer for this. Moving on to the next question. A metal ball of mass 0.3 kg and weight 3 Newton is held so that it is below the surface of oil. It experiences an upward force of 0.30 newtons. So there's an upward force of 0.30 newtons. There's a downward weight acting, which is 3 newtons. So when the ball is released, what is the initial acceleration? So when the ball is released, we're going to use the formula W equals to mg. The weight acting is 2.7 by the calculation of 3 minus 0.3 Newton. And the mass is 0.3 kg, so 2.7 divided by 0.3. The g, also the acceleration, is 9.0 meter per second square by the calculation. And so B is the correct answer for this. Moving on to the next question. The Earth travels in a circular orbit around the Sun at constant speed. Which arrow shows the direction of the acceleration of the Earth and the direction of the velocity of the Earth? As we know, the direction of the acceleration by the resultant force has to be towards the center. So R is the direction of this acceleration, whereas the velocity will be Q. So option D is the correct answer. Moving on to the next, 4 of the gravitational forces that act between the bodies in the solar system are described below. P, the force on moon due to the earth. Q, the force on the earth due to the sun. The force on the earth due to the moon. And S, the force on the moon due to the sun. Which two forces are a Newton's third law pair? The action and reaction force. So P is the force on the moon due to the earth. And so the reaction of this would be the force on the earth due to the moon. So P and R are the correct answer. Option B. Moving on to the next. A man pushes a heavy box along the ground. A force acts between the man's hand and the box. Another force acts between the man's feet and the floor. In which direction do these forces act on the man? Now, the force on the man's hand, it's towards the left. So applied from the box to the hand, it's on the left, while on the force on the man's feet, it's towards the right, because it's a frictional force. So B is the correct answer. Force on man's feet is towards the right. The force on man's hand is towards the left. Moving on to the next. In a model of an atom, electrons move in the circular orbits around the nucleus. Which statement about the electrons is correct? The acceleration of the electrons is towards the central nucleus. The acceleration, as we've discussed, part of the centripetal force, it's towards the center of the circular motion. So B is the correct answer. A body slides down a frictional slope as shown. As the body presses on the surface pushes back on the body. If the surface is pushing back on the body, it's a perpendicular force from the surface to the body, and so C would be the correct answer for it. A car of mass 1500 kg is towing a trailer of mass 1100 kg along a level road. The acceleration of the car is 1.30 meters per second square. Ignoring friction and air resistance, what is the driving force on the car? So you've got the mass and you've got the acceleration. And by the calculation, option D is the correct answer. Just add the masses and multiply it by the acceleration, F equals to ma, and that is the answer. Moving on to the next question. A coin falls through the air from rest and eventually reaches a constant speed. Two forces P and Q act on the coin. What happens to the force P and to the resultant force acting on the coin before it reaches the constant speed? So the force P will keep on increasing and the resultant force will keep on decreasing till the coin achieves a terminal velocity, also a constant speed. So the correct answer for this is C. Force P will keep on increasing, the resultant force will keep on decreasing. The next question. The diagram shows a motorcyclist leaning over in order to move around a corner. Which force causes him to move around the corner? The force A is allowing it to move around the corner. The force acting towards the center of the circular orbit. Option A. The propeller on a boat pushes water backwards with a force of 2000 Newton. The boat moves through the water against a total resistive force of 1800 newtons. According to Newton's third law, what is the forward force on the propeller due to the water? So it is asking what is the forward force on the propeller. So it will just be the reaction force of the force on water due to the propeller. Option C would be the correct answer. Remember, they're not asking for the total forward force, they're asking on the forward force on the propeller only, which is why C is the correct answer. Now, the next question, an aeroplane is halfway along a runway before it takes off. The arrow shows the direction of four forces acting on an airplane. The drag forces on the airplane are negligible. Gravitational field strength is 10. Acceleration of the airplane is 2. What is the largest force? The largest force would be the weight of the airplane. Moving on to the next, which is a statement of Newton's third law. To every action, there's an equal but opposite reaction. Option D is the correct answer. A car is traveling at a constant speed along the road and drives along over a large patch of oil. The driver applies the brakes to stop the car. Compared to braking on a dry road, what may happen? The surface is oily, there is less friction, and so the car takes longer to slow down because of the reduced friction between the tires and the road. Option C is the correct answer. The wheel of a moving car is driven by the engine. The car is accelerating in the direction shown. In which direction does the frictional force act on the wheel? The frictional force, as you can see, the tire is moving towards B. The frictional force will be in the opposite. So option D is the correct answer. If I can just show here, as you can see, the tire is moving in this direction. So this is the direction of the tire. The friction would be the opposite force. So this is the friction, the opposite force. Now the diagram shows a cyclist leaning over in order to cycle around a corner. Which force is necessary to maintain the motion around the corner? The A, towards the circular orbit, towards the center of the circular orbit. That's the force that is required. Thank you so much. That will be it for the chapter. If you've got any questions, put them down in the comment box below, and I will reply to them.